This is Murderous Minors, Killer Kids, bringing you the frightening and truly insane tales of children with the thirst to kill. Kindergarten through 12th grade murderers. True stories thoroughly researched. Join us weekly for new tales of parents' worst nightmares on Murderous Minors, Killer Kids. Episode number 4, Catherine and Curtis Jones and John Engel. Part 1, Catherine and Curtis Jones. The story of Catherine and Curtis Jones is a perplexing one that spanned 18 years and left many onlookers with a sinking feeling in their stomach that perhaps the system may have failed these children. This brother and sister committed their crime at just 13 and 12 years of age in 1998, having shot to death their father's 29-year-old girlfriend, Sonia Nicole Spates, a beloved elementary school teacher's aide who devoted her career to helping children with emotional difficulties learn and thrive, just as her mother had done before her. Let me just tell you now that the kids take a plea and are sentenced without giving any testimony in 1999. At the time, it was widely reported that jealousy was the motivating factor. Authorities, attorneys, and the press all reported that the kids felt that Sonia Spates had moved in on their territory. An in-depth newspaper investigation, along with a review of files by attorneys seeking clemency in 2009, involved the release of Department of Family Services reports, and the story went from foggy to just slightly more clear. But to try and understand the circumstances leading to the tragic murder of Sonia Spates, a loving mother of 2 daughters herself, it is necessary to go back to the beginning. Catherine and Curtis Jones are the children of Stacy Parks and Curtis Jones Sr., who met when she was a 17-year-old working at a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Palo Alto, California. He was 23 years old, and it was 1984. Stacy's parents did nothing to hide the fact that they disapproved of their white daughter dating a black man, but after 6 months of seeing each other, the pair were expecting their first child, Catherine. She would be born premature, a bit over 3 pounds, and her mother Stacy was convinced that a tear in her uterus sustained during a domestic violence incident caused the early birth. The following May of 1986, Curtis Jr. would be born, and by 1989, Stacy was fleeing her abusive husband without her children, just months after the two officially married. She pawned a gold chain to buy a one-way bus ticket to her mother's place in Kansas. Not only would her mother not allow her biracial children to live with them, but Curtis had also made it abundantly clear that she could go, but the children would be staying with him. Around this time in 1989, Curtis Jones Sr. would find himself not only a newly single father, but also arrested for second-degree murder. The children would go stay in Alabama with his mother while he handled the charges, which would eventually be dropped to a misdemeanor and deemed self-defense. When Curtis returns with the kids to their Port St. John, Florida home, he would hook up with an unidentified family member who had just spent 6 years in prison for armed robbery. In 1993, this very same family member would be convicted of having an inappropriate relationship with a 14-year-old girl. The same year that Stacy Parks would drive to Florida from Kansas, pick her kids up from school, take them back with her, and would lead to her being arrested for custodial interference. The charges would later be dropped after the children were returned. The family member came to live with Curtis and his 2 children. In 1994, Curtis Jr. would report to his mother while visiting her in Kansas that the family member shared his bed with him and alleged that he would touch him inappropriately. Stacy Parks reports these allegations to authorities, marking the first of 3 occasions that the Sheriff's Department and Family Services would investigate abuse claims at this home. But after speaking with Curtis Jr., who was about 8 years old at the time, authorities say that he recants the claims and only mentioned it in hopes that he would either get to live with his mother in Kansas full-time or that the relative would be forced to move out of his family's home. Evidently, they did not delve deeper into why he might want this, and instead, they closed the investigation. In 1996, Curtis Jr. would show up at a sheriff's department with a swollen and bruised eye, prompting the second investigation, which would also be closed with no action being taken. In late September 1998, the situation reached a critical point. Catherine ran away from home right around the same time that one of her teachers at Space Coast Middle School reported suspicions of sexual abuse. This begins the third and most serious investigation of all. Catherine was interviewed extensively but went on to deny any claims of sexual abuse and returned home to her dad's house. Department of Family Services did find indicators of abuse at this point, and Curtis Sr. was advised that the family member should not be living with his children due to his sex offender status. But the investigation is closed, with offers for counseling and parental education denied. Just a few days later, the family member would corner 13-year-old Catherine while she is helpless in the shower, later leaving 50 cents on the toilet seat when he was done emotionally abusing and tormenting her. This event, she says, was the catalyst that turned her mind toward murder. Her father did not believe her, and she felt that he was even taking his relative's side when she thought he would be ready to kill him. While walking to the bus stop one morning, Curtis would tell his big sister that he believed her because these things also happened to him. Catherine said that when she heard her little brother was also being victimized and abused, the murder plot blossomed and they vowed to make it come to fruition, using the 9mm handgun that their father kept in the house. Although the ammo was kept separately, they knew where that was too. In the end, the official plan would be to kill the family member for abusing them, to kill their father for not believing them, and to kill their father's girlfriend, allegedly for not protecting them. By January 6, 1999, they were ready to seize their opportunity when their dad left the house to run a few errands. By now, Catherine is 13 and Curtis is 12, and by all accounts, they actually have a favorable relationship with their dad's live-in girlfriend. She has 2 daughters who are several years younger than the Jones kids that live in Alabama with their grandma. The girls had lived with their mom and the Jones family as recently as the prior year and considered the kids their siblings. Sonia's estranged husband, the girl's father, was serving a 20-year federal prison sentence in Alabama and would not be permitted to attend his wife's funeral after her murder. Once their father leaves to run his errands, Sonia is left alone with the kids, who know that the family member will be returning to the house later that day. They're sitting at the dining room table putting together a puzzle when Curtis removes the gun from his lap and fires. He drops the gun, hysterical, and Catherine then picks it up and fires as well. Of the 9 shots fired, 4 of them strike Sonia, killing her. The children have fired errant bullets all around the room. They then move their victim's body to the bathtub, attempt to clean up her blood using bleach, and put the towels into the washing machine. They are now frantic, and they run from their house across the street where they tell a few friends and neighbors what they've done. Before anyone can calm them down enough to get them into a house and call the police, they take off running into some small woods behind their home and spend the entire night underneath a pile of blankets back there. The police would apprehend them the next morning, which seems like a rather long time for both police and their father to go without locating them, especially since they were right behind their house. But when questioned, they start off with the story that the shooting was accidental. Police don't accept this eagerly, mainly because evidence indicated that the kids went to great lengths to try and clean up after themselves, wiping the scene down with bleach and attempting to wash the towels they used. They also moved Sonia's body to the bathtub so she wouldn't be immediately visible to anyone that entered the house. Eventually, they explained that they had planned to kill Sonia Spates but leave it at that. Neither reveals the true plan to kill the abuser along with their father, nor do they reveal any details about the abuse. Detectives already knew that they had visited the family multiple times with family services, but they also were aware of the fact that though indicators of abuse were present, no indisputable evidence of sexual abuse had been found. Catherine would later explain in her 2009 interview that each time she recanted her story, it had been under duress and threats from her father. She had been told that a favorable resolution in this situation would be the kids' removal from the home and likely into foster care. Having already been forced into separation from her mother, she did not find this a comforting solution. At the time of her interview, detectives note that Catherine has an apparent lack of remorse. The grand jury would go on to indict Catherine and Curtis on charges of first-degree murder as adults, making Curtis the youngest child in the country at the time to be charged as such. Had they been sentenced within the juvenile system, state law would have allowed a maximum 36-month sentence. Attorneys worked diligently to construct an appeal that would allow the children to avoid the mandatory life sentence in adult prison, and they would go on to offer pleas for second-degree murder, carrying with them 18 years behind bars and lifetime probation. So there would be no trial, no testimony from the children, their father, sheriff's investigators, or Department of Family Services representatives. No evidence would be presented to show whether Sonia Spates even knew or acknowledged that accusations of abuse had ever even been made. The allegations of abuse against the unnamed family member would not come to light in open court, and extenuating factors and circumstances would not be highlighted and examined. The victim's family would not have the opportunity to testify as to the person Sonia Nicole Spates was, and explain that she did indeed care for and protect those children. None of these hallmarks of a trial would take place. Though through a trial, it would have been possible that some of the weight of responsibility for this tragedy could have been shifted to all the proper shoulders. Regardless, prior abuse could not be used as a